The judgment of the wicked is a distinct and separate work. It takes place at a latter period. When is that? When is the latter period? Millennial judgment. So what is going on? What is going on about the wicked that is we don't consider as judgment right now? Their record are being set straight. But their record will be open for assessment in the millennial judgment. Have you not read the Bible that the saints will support God in the work of judgment? For 1,000 years we will be investigated, but why is Amenya not in heaven here right now? Why is the preacher not here? And then Christ can be able to reveal to you whatsoever things he may have done that do not warrant opportunity in heaven. So are there reserved evidence in heaven about people's doings? Of course. Books of record are in heaven in which the names of the deeds of men are registered are to determine the decisions of the judgment. Hey, and don't overthink, because there are people who have asked me questions that books, really? If God is who he is, why does he need a book and things like that? Don't overthink. I'd take more time to overthink about my relationship with God a lot more than my record in heaven or how those records are kept. So I don't know, but the Bible and the spirit of prophecy show us quite clearly that there are recording angels in heaven. And there are books in heaven. So I don't give it much thought, even if there are chronicles and scrolls and all that. So opposite each name in the books of heaven is entered with terrible exactness. Every wrong word, every selfish act, every unfulfilled duty, and every secret sin with artful dissembling. They are chronicled by the recording angel. We have the book of life in whose names of all those who have entered service of God is recorded. So once you accept to be a child of God, either by way of showing willingness or by baptism or whatever way it leads you to God, your name is recorded in the book of life. Children's names are not recorded in the book of life when they are born. We are not born saints, neither are we born sinners. So that's a very important understanding there. And of course, again, there is a book called the Book of Remembrance. What does it do? All the good deeds and acts are recorded in the Book of Remembrance. There is also a book called the Book of Iniquity that contains the name of those who are considered people who are not going to merit from that work that we are talking about, the work that Christ is doing on our behalf. The Book of Remembrance is a specific book that contains only the deeds of those who will be saved. People who will be found unworthy of heaven, all their records of good doing are removed from the Book of Remembrance. They don't have such records anymore. But those who will have obtained salvation will have their names or their deeds in the Book of Remembrance. I don't want to get into details with that. It's just simple as such. So now what happens between this time now? So 1844 is here. And the movement, this is where I want you to follow as we come to an end. I'll bring it to a very abrupt end because of time. In 1844, there is a great disappointment. Christ enters the most holy place. He begins the work of reconciling the world to God by way of putting records clear. I take it by this time that people like Noah, Abraham, Adam, Isaac, all these patriarchs of the past, their records are already clear because I take it that they began all the way back there. However, there is a movement that grows all the way from around 1830s, around 1840s, and that movement is pioneered by Kinamila. That movement comes all the way and the great disappointment, and there is a little bit of a shaking there. The shaking that occurs at 1844 separates a little wheat from the tare, because there are those who had committed to the coming of Christ because of fear. Is there going to be a shaking again? Absolutely. Because there is going to come a time, there are people even in the church today who are committing to Christ because they feel this is a way of life, but not because they really have need for Christ. So during this time, there was a little bit of a shaking. And out of hundreds of thousands of men who had committed to the second coming of Christ, a little about only 5,000 people remained committed in that cause in the United States of America at the time. So these about 5,000 people, history tells me so. It might not be a specific number, but about there. These few people who remained began to investigate the scripture quite clearly and easy. And they realized that that was just the time Christ was supposed to come, of course, before the Father to begin that investigation. And they continued, hoping that even that coming now would come so soon at this time. That disappointment was necessary. When you read the Spirit of Prophecy, it says it was necessary because that these people should begin preparation. Why? Because Christ was to return sooner hereafter. And I'm going to surprise you if you haven't seen that. After 1844, something happened between 1844 to 1848. That movement grew and grew. And by 1848, they had clear knowledge of the fact that they were not observing all 10 commandments. Are we together so far? They had realized that they were observing 9 commandments and that there was one that they were no longer observing, or they had not been observing. Which commandment was that? The 4th commandment. They realized they had not been observing the Sabbath. But because of the theories that had been sold by papacy, they may have felt, well, God could be worshipped on our own terms. My brothers and sisters, God must be worshipped on his own terms. You don't start a religion in the name of God and observe your traditions. If you start a religion in the name of God, you have to worship God on his own terms. But man then had changed because of their traditions and things of the likes, that they would observe Sunday instead of Saturday or Sabbath. So in 1848, there was beginning of the observance of the Sabbath. And the sealing work began right then. You have to follow. We are talking about the imminent end. Did the sealing work begin at 1844? No. How does God seal his people? Oh, that's a specific question. Okay. I'll forget about that. But the sealing work of the Lord has to be associated with the observance of all 10 commandments, especially the 4th commandment. So the sealing work began at 1848. I didn't put that on the map. And between this time all the way up to this time, the sealing work ends here. But it starts somewhere around 1844 here. 48, thank you very much for the correction. 1848, in the beginning of the observance of the Sabbath. Now, during this time, a movement called the Laodicean Church. Now, remember that in Revelation, these things called, or this church, how do I call them? We call them churches, so let me just call them churches. There was no such thing as churches. It was an experience that the very church of God underwent through time. So when you talk about Ephesus, we are talking about an experience that the church went through, the very church of God. There is just one church all through those 7 churches. But the church goes through experiences that gives it those titles, Ephesus, Laodicea, all that. So when we get to Laodicea, we meet a church that has a bit of a problem. It wants to have a balance between the life it wants to live to Christ and the life it wants to present to the world. Christ has a problem with the experience of the church during this time, because that church is neither committed to the cause as it should be, nor have left the world completely. And that's where we are even up to now. And as this continues, the sealing work continues, the Laodicean experience continues, the investigative judgment still goes on, but still only the dead are being judged. So go with me a little bit. If the sealing work began, why hasn't it ended? Watch, listen. The work of God in the earth presents from age to age a striking similarity in every great reformation of religious movement. The principles of God's dealing with the man are ever the same. The important movements of the present have their parallel in those of the past. And the experience of the church in former ages has lessons of great value today. I'm going to skip that. So what goes on between this time all the way up to the time of the passing of the National Sunday Law? This map is all over. I don't know when it was developed. You may have seen this. We've used it for a very long time. So in 1844 all the way to the passing of the National Sunday Law, there is judgment going on of the dead, and again we call it a preparation time. I'm going to skip that so that I bring you to this. So between this time all the way to this time, the church must be militant. Why? Because the church is like, could I call struggling, for lack of a better description, but the church is in an experience where it's battling. So it's a church militant, and trouble is coming upon the earth. I don't want to go there now, so we'll go there tomorrow. All right, here it is. Okay. People are now settling to rest, imagining, themselves secure under the popular churches. But let them be aware, let all beware, lest there is a place left open for the enemy to gain entrance. Great pains should be taken to keep this subject before the people. Let no one's interpretation of the prophecy, rob you of your conviction of the knowledge of events which show this great event is at hand. Remember that while we are discussing this issue of sealing time delayed, we are not setting any dates, we are not setting any time, we are forbidden from that, and any such preacher who thinks that Christ would have to return or something would have to happen by a certain time, if not revealed clearly from the Bible, is a false teacher. And I don't want to be any such. So there is also this map that has been used to describe a little bit of what happens in the plan of redemption. And my brothers and sisters, we are not setting any dates there. People have used this map to set time and dates for the second coming of Christ. Have you seen them or heard from them? I'm not going to do that. I don't know what time God is going to have his son return. I just care about getting ready. But truth is, this timeline is so true that someone can be tempted to set date. I have to be clear with you on that. This timeline is so true that you can be tempted to set a date for the second return of Christ. Why is it so true? Because the plan of redemption is laid out so clearly for, it should take a period of 70,000 years or 7 days, or what do we call it? 7,000 days. We lost Eden here, and since this time all the way to midweek where Christ was crucified, just around this time, we had spent 4,000 years since the world began. The world did not begin a billion years before. Crazy things from the books you're probably reading right now. So during this time, since the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, all the way up, if you add 2,000 years, we may have been just about the sixth day, in which there is a sundown, and of course the second coming of Jesus Christ. Now, why do we bring this to view? Listen. Time is prolonged that all may hear the last message proclaimed with a loud voice. Watch. The Lord's work has been hindered, and the sealing time has been delayed. Those are not my words. Why was the sealing work delayed? Listen. The end will come more quickly than men expect. The wheat will be gathered and bound in sheaves for the garner of God. The tares will be bound as fagots for the fires of destruction. She's giving me a reminder that I need to wind up. That's okay. The history of ancient Israel, like I said, has a striking similarity to that of the experience of the Adventist body. Let me read from here. A flood of light would have been shed upon the world years ago. The inhabitants of the earth would have been warned, the closing work completed, and Christ would have come for the redemption of his people. So if you go back to my map, a little over 1848, between that time, Christ could come any time. We are talking about the imminent end. And I want to show you just briefly what would happen around that time. So, we have said that all the way from 1844, I have not shown you this, to 1888, there is a generation that is lost there. See, 1844 minus 48 is 40 years. That's a generation. What happened in 1888? For me to show you just how fast events were coming through. The first Sunday law was passed, isn't it? What they call the Blair Sunday law. And what happened in the Adventist movement during that time? A message came through two young men, right? A message of justification by faith, righteousness by faith. Alonzo Trevor Jones and Elliot J. Waggoner. That warned the church about character development. That called the church to ideal service to God. That called the church to live as though they were being judged right there, right then. So could Christ have come anytime then? Of course. But it says that already it is beginning to be urged, and a movement was there to enforce that Sunday law. And of course things unfold all the way up, and then Mrs. White had a terrible vision, and this is what I want to share with you, and then we close. Do you all believe in Mrs. White, just in case, again? So I'm just going to quote her if you do. If you have a problem with me, you need to have a problem with her, because I'm just quoting her now. In 1849, she had this vision. I saw that the four angels would hold the four winds until Jesus' work was done in the sanctuary, and then will come the 7 plagues. Watch. Then my attending angel directed me to the city again, where I saw 4 angels winging their way to the gate of the city. They were just presenting the golden cup to the angel at the gate when I saw another angel flying swiftly from the direction of the most excellent glory. What direction is from the most excellent glory? Take your time, read the book, Truth About Angels. Beautiful explanation or revelation about how angels operate in heaven and what levels of angels there is in heaven. There are levels of angels in heaven. There are those who are gatekeepers, there are those who are messengers, there are cherubims, there are seraphims, all that. But there was an angel which came from the direction of the most excellent glory, the very present seat of God, and crying with a loud voice to the other angels and waving something up and down in his hands. I asked my attendant angel for an explanation of what I saw. He told me that I could see no more then, but he would shortly show me what those things that I saw meant. Okay? Now, this is what happened just this afternoon. Sabbath afternoon, the Spirit fell upon me again, and I was taken off in a vision. I saw those 4 angels. They were to accomplish a work to do on earth, and were on their way to accomplish it. They had a work to do on earth. They were on their way to accomplish it. Jesus was still clothed with priestly garments. Watch. So if Christ is still clothed with priestly garments, what's going on? Judgment is still going on. However, these angels are coming down. And this is what she says going forward. Then I saw the angel with a commission from Jesus swiftly flying to the 4 angels who had a work to do on earth. So remember, she said from the beginning that there is an angel who comes with something, and this angel brings this note to these 4 angels that have a work to do on earth. Then I saw an angel with a commission again now. Another angel is sent from Christ again to these angels which have a work to do on earth. What are they sent? What is he sent to do? And waving something up and down in his hands and crying with a loud voice, he says, hold, 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 until the servants of God are sealed on their foreheads. Why is Christ saying hold? I thought he had everything in control. Up to this time, if you can remember, the 4 angels are the 4 angels that holds the winds. So they were going to let go. And if they let go, then that means, remember that the 4 angels has a specific commission. Their commission is in respect to the 7 last plagues. So if should they let go, then that would actually tell the very exact of the beginning of the very end of all the endings, if there be. That would actually be the imminent end now. But Christ sent out a voice, let them hold. Why? He gazed in pity on the remnant, then raised his hands, and with a voice of deep pity cried, my blood, Father, my blood, my blood, my blood. Then I saw an exceeding bright light come from God, who sat upon great white throne, and was shed all about Jesus. So I'm asking you a question, and I want you to see just about now, that during about this time in 1849, she had seen that vision, and that vision came back again. I want to get there and just close. So here is what I want us to look at. So in 1849 to 1882, there is a future tense of that, of those angels about to let go. Then in 1888, the present tense, the work we now have to do is to cry to the angels to hold. In 1897, it is a past tense, number 1. Had the people of God believed him and been doers of his word, had they kept his commandments, the angel would have not come crying, hold. Are you following so far? What am I saying here now? She's saying, had they done that work by 1888, that end would have come. But in 1908, past tense, the command to the angels is still in force up until today. They hold the 4 winds until the servants of God are sealed in their forehead. And I've talked to you about these Sunday law movements in 1888, the sealing time being delayed, and all that goes on and on. And we see that there is I wish I could take you through these generations. I just don't have time. You look at it through the notes I'll be able to share. So from 1848, when the sealing work begins, there is a first generation that runs all the way to 1888, where the righteousness by faith message is preached. Then from 1888, she has her first vision of those angels that are supposed to release chaos to the world. But then Christ calls upon them to hold all the way to 1928. Hold fast, my blood fast. Hold second, my blood fast. My blood. hold again my blood. So when you look at this, my blood hold, it signifies that Christ was calling to God to hold for these generations. When it got to 2008, do you remember the history began to cycle again like it was in 1888? Do you remember? What happened during that time? There was a serious economic surge all over the world. United States was shaken so badly. They wanted a solution. And anyone who thinks right, that solution could have come from a power that could give them an easy solution, if so to say. I'll discuss that tomorrow. And then again, just around 2008, there's so many things. Let me talk about that tomorrow. I'm out of time. May God bless you. Shall we pray? Father, thank you for the privilege we've had to briefly discuss. I pray and hope that you will be able to help us to see these things clearly. We are talking about the imminent end, and we are seeing just how clearly some of these things have happened in the past and how they continue to reveal here in the future. We want to ask you in a special way that we will be quite attentive to these things that we are reading. Some of them are new to the brethren here. Some of them look complex or just unnecessary or just stories. But I hope, dear Lord, that they will be important history for us to contemplate over. And I pray that I might be able to make these things clear for them. Thank you, and I pray for your blessing as we depart tonight in Jesus' name. Amen. I'm just going to say, because I have had to hurry for time, that if you have any concerns about the things that we are discussing, if you have any questions, could we have those questions written down so that they can come to me earlier before Sabbath so that then I can prepare? I have to tell you that, yes, I have knowledge of some things, but not everything. So even in the things that I have knowledge of, I could answer them better if I prepare to answer them than if I just answer them randomly. So even on the issue of like the sealing time, I know there are areas that looks blurred for some of you. If you still have those concerns, you could raise them. I'm very much willing to address them on Sabbath. May the Lord be with you tonight.